open our Bibles, and we're going to read from Scripture. We're going to read from 1 Kings 12. And this chapter is about the King Rehoboam, who is the oldest son of King Solomon. At least we assume he is. King Rehoboam was the heir to King Solomon, who was one of the great famous kings of the Old Testament, the son of David. And our text for today, Proverbs chapter 4, is the words of a father to his son. And we assume that the father in Proverbs 4 is Solomon. We don't know for sure, but we assume. And then therefore the son of Solomon, who's receiving the words of Proverbs 4, would be Rehoboam, who we're going to read about here in 1 Kings chapter 12. And we're going to read about whether Rehoboam is indeed wise and whether he listened to his father or whether he did not. And we'll see which is the case in 1 Kings 12. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone there to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard this, he was still in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon. He returned from Egypt. So they sent for Jeroboam, and he and the whole assembly of Israel went to Rehoboam and said to him, "Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you." And Rehoboam answered, "Go away for 3 days and then come back to me." And so the people went away. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. "How would you advise me to answer these people?" he asked. They replied, "If today you will be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants." But Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him and consulted the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. He asked them, "What is your advice? How should we answer these people who say to me, 'Lighten the yoke your father put on us'?" The young men who had grown up with him replied, "These people have said to you, 'Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but make our yoke lighter.' Now tell them, 'My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father laid on you a heavy yoke. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions." And 3 days later, Jeroboam and all the people returned to Rehoboam as the king had said, "Come back to me in 3 days." The king answered the people harshly. Rejecting the advice given him by the elders, he followed the advice of the young men and said, "My father made your yoke heavy. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions." So the king did not listen to the people, for this turn of events was from the Lord, to fulfill the word the Lord had spoken to Jeroboam, son of Nebat, through Ahijah the Shilonite. When all Israel saw that the king refused to listen to them, they answered the king, "What share do we have in David? What part in Jesse's son? To your tents, Israel. Look after your own house, David." And so the Israelites went home. But as for the Israelites who were living in the towns of Judah, Rehoboam still ruled over them. King Rehoboam sent out Adoniram, who was in charge of forced labor, but all Israel stoned him to death. King Rehoboam, however, managed to get into his chariot and escape to Jerusalem. So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. When all the Israelites heard that Jeroboam had returned, they sent and called him to the assembly and made him king over all Israel. Only the tribe of Judah remained loyal to the house of David. When Rehoboam arrived in Jerusalem, he mustered all Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 able young men, to go to war against Israel and to regain the kingdom for Rehoboam, son of Solomon. But this word of God came to Shemaiah, the man of God. Say to Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Judah, to all Judah and Benjamin and to the rest of the people, this is what the Lord says. Do not go up to fight against your brothers, the Israelites. Go home, every one of you, for this is my doing. So they obeyed the word of the Lord and went home again as the Lord had ordered. That's far the reading from. We can open our Bibles to Proverbs chapter 4. We'll continue our series on Proverbs there in that chapter. We'll read the whole chapter, but the text will come from verses 1 through 9. It's Proverbs chapter 4. Proverbs chapter 4, page 513 of your Pew Bible. Proverbs chapter 4. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me, and he said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart, keep my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Cherish her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. She will give you a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. Listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. I instruct you in the way of wisdom and lead you along straight paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction, do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it, do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way, for they cannot rest until they do evil. They are robbed of sleep till they make someone stumble. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. But the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart. For they are life to those who find them, and health to one's whole body. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil. As far reading from Proverbs. Congregation of Christ. The question, of course, of today in this chapter is, how important is wisdom to you? If you had to rate the importance of wisdom in your life, 1 out of 10, what would you say? Is getting more wisdom important enough for a 6 out of 10 or 8 out of 10? And your list of priorities in your life is finding more wisdom and growing in wisdom at the top, or is it near the bottom? And I want to explore the question a little bit by talking about education. Many of us desire education and getting a degree, or maybe if you're younger in this church, you're going to go to high school and get a diploma. Maybe you're in elementary school. Some of us work as teachers or principals or so forth. And we want to get educated. This is a general desire in our culture. But why? Why do we go to school? I mean, school's going to start on Tuesday. Why are we doing this? Why this giant educational enterprise in Western culture? It seems to me, at least, and maybe I'm right or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Most of us, or many of us, get an education because A, we have to. B, because it gets us a good job or a career, stable income. Maybe there's a third reason we get an education because of the status. But in all of this discussion, what I think is often lost is that we're supposed to go to school in order to learn. How often have I spoken to students, particularly of science or engineering, business? And the students that take these courses, they complain that they have to take what we would call breadth credits. So every business or science or engineering student has to take one English and one history and one philosophy or who knows what it might be. And every engineer I have ever spoken to, every science student I've ever spoken to has been like, what a pain, I hate doing this, I don't want to do this. Why? Why is it a waste of time to take these courses? Maybe we think that the knowledge dispensed in these courses is not useful. That's fair. But ultimately, in my mind, the reason is because it's a distraction from the goal. And the goal is to finish school, get a job, so that I can have a normal life. What is education about, though? What are we doing when we go to school? What are we teaching as teachers? Is it just a transfer of information, or is there something more supposed to be happening? What's fascinating is that Proverbs chapter 4 speaks to this. Here we have a father passing on the words of his father, or the grandfather. He's passing down wisdom. And what wisdom is he passing down? He's actually not passing down wisdom at all yet, in a sense. His wisdom that he's passing on to his children is get wisdom, period. Love wisdom. Find it at all costs. Sell all of your possessions to get it. And that's it. I mean, so many other things, of course, can be said by a father to his son. Find the right spouse. Find the right job. Live in the right area. Spend your money wisely. That's what our fathers tell their children today. Don't cheer for the wrong sports team. No, only in Toronto is that the case. Advice from a father to a son. But this father in Proverbs says, son, get wisdom. That's it. It's so brilliant. And the truth is that this is brilliant wisdom, because if you gain wisdom, then all good things in life are more likely to follow, right? If a son proves that he's wise, then the parents will probably say, this kid's life is going to go okay. We don't really need to say much more. But the opposite is true too. If you neglect wisdom, you don't grow in wisdom, you don't listen to other people, even if you have good things, you're probably going to end up losing them all. You have a good spouse, you're probably going to lose him or her if you're completely unwise as a person. Good house, children, all these things, good career. It's probably going to dribble out through your fingers if you choose folly, especially the kind of folly in which you ignore God. So we're beginning to realize how brilliant this advice is. Just seek wisdom, and everything else will follow. Now, let's return to the question of education now. Why do we go to school on Tuesday? Well, it seems, according to Proverbs chapter 4, that the answer should be that we gain wisdom. And really, Everything else that's happening in the classroom is secondary in a way. If I stand in the classroom and I learn lots but fail to gain wisdom, what? Now I'm going to return to this in our second point, but first I want to work through this passage in sequence. That means we're going to start with the first point, which is about listening to your grandparents or your elders. And then we'll return in our second point to the process of acquiring wisdom and its importance. So let's start at verse 1. Verse 1 here says, "Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching." Now, as we start this chapter, we need to look at the tone, right? This is a father talking to his son, and it's not a family discussion. It's not like sitting at the dinner table and the father introduces a topic to discuss, and we can all negotiate on what the truth is. No. This chapter is, you, son, sit down, listen, shut up. I'm going to tell you something that you got to listen to. You have to. Reminds me of many conversations I had with my father and grandfather, actually. Usually when I had been really foolish, then I got the sit down, shut your mouth, now you're gonna listen. It's sort of what this chapter is. So what's he gonna say now? Verse 3. "For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother," so still a young boy. "Then he, my father, taught me, and he said to me, 'Take hold of my words with all your heart, keep my commands, and you will live.'" So this thing I'm going to teach you is life or death. Now here's where I want to return to Rehoboam for a minute. Solomon is likely the author of this chapter. King Solomon, the famous, rich, and powerful king of history. Solomon is giving his son the words that his father gave to him. Who's Solomon's father? Well, King David. When we hear King David, our ears are to perk up. This is no ordinary man. King David, right? We just sang a couple of King David's psalms. King David was a man after God's own heart. He conquered all of his enemies and made Israel into a powerful nation. He spent maybe a decade or more of his life running from the previous king, Saul. Had a chance to kill him twice, didn't take it. Ooh, David is a man that we want to listen to this man. He's a remarkable figure. And so Solomon is going to pass down David's wisdom. Now, to Rehoboam, to Solomon's sons are going to receive this information, the oldest of which, or at least we think, is Rehoboam. And one of the supreme ironies of Proverbs chapter 4 is that Rehoboam is shown to not have taken this advice. In 1 Kings 12, we read the chapter. Rehoboam is a foolish king. He tries to oppress the people of Israel even harsher than they had been oppressed before. They don't respond well. Now, why does Rehoboam do this? Well, he does this because he listens to the advice of young men rather than older men, or his grandfathers, you could say. Oh, and that cuts right to the center of the chapter. What's the chapter about? The chapter is about the wisdom of grandparents being passed down to their grandchildren. Wise people, wise Christians, listen to godly grandparents. Rehoboam does not, and he loses the kingdom. I want to explore this topic a little bit further. The wisdom of the aged. First, the Bible teaches us in many places that wisdom is gained by those who have lived many years. Particularly by who we would call our grandparents. Job 12, verse 12. Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? Here's Proverbs 16, verse 31. Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness. Proverbs 20, verse 29. The glory of young men is their strength, gray hair the splendor of the old. And then gray hair is synonymous with wisdom here. Gray hair is splendor to the aged because it means that things have been learned. Wisdom has been gained in those years. One author I read commented on how wisdom is really the only real thing that increases with age, humanly. All other human things decline over time, our health, our strength, even our relationships as we lose friends to death and things like that. But wisdom grows over time. There's a compensation, maybe, he says. One of the church fathers, Jerome, told a great story about this. He mentions a Greek man named Theophrastus. And Theophrastus died at the age of 107. And at his death, he said to those around him, he said he deeply regretted having to pass away and die at age 107 because he was just beginning to grow wise, he said. Sounds like he was playing a joke on his friends. But it's clear, isn't it? Over time, wisdom is gained. Maybe at different rates for different people, but it's beside the point. And therefore, brothers and sisters, the point of one of the major messages of Proverbs chapter 4 is that those of us who are younger need to listen to those of us who are older. Of course, old age is not a guarantee of wisdom, but Proverbs is all about what's generally true. Generally speaking, the aged gain wisdom. This is so much so that in the New Testament, the word for elder or leader in the church is presbyter. And the word for presbyter, which is we still use, the Presbyterian church is named after this. This word for presbyter simply means old man. One of the reasons I want to emphasize this in this chapter is so countercultural, because our culture lionizes the wisdom of the young and kind of de-emphasizes the elderly. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of the growth of technology. The young understand the way our culture works and our technology, and so there's a natural tendency towards the young seem to know more. But the Bible is antithetical. The Bible does not agree with that. The Bible is the aged have the wisdom, the young should listen. In fact, this is so much the case that it says in Leviticus 19, verse 32, God gives a command to the people of Israel. Listen to this command. It says, "Stand up in the presence of the aged, show respect for the elderly, and revere your God. I am the Lord." He orders the people of Israel to stand up when they're in the presence of the elderly. And I wonder if we should just do that. It seems like a command that should still stand. Of course, this is given to the Israelites in the desert where they don't have chairs and so forth. But anyway, be that as it may. Respect for those who are older than us in general. There's one more last layer to this before we finish our first point. What's also incredible about Solomon's teaching is that the teaching comes from a godly grandparent. David is a man who danced in the streets out of worship to God, who wanted to build God's temple, a man after God's own heart, and now he's passing on advice. And it's not just that he's aged and that it's the wisdom of the aged, it's the wisdom of godly grandparents. How many of us have been blessed with godly grandparents? I can speak to this myself. When I was born, all of my great-grandparents were alive and lived in Vancouver where I lived. In fact, when I was born, there was a picture of all of my great-grandparents and grandparents holding me as a child. And every one of them was a member of the Canadian Reformed Church. It's not a huge thing in and of itself, but what's huge in it is the legacy, the prayers, the fact that all of them prayed for me and prayed for my family and my cousins. And you can see the result of godly grandparenting. The children, it affects the children through the generations. Faith is passed down from generation to generation. That's what's happening in Proverbs chapter 4. And it's no small thing. If you are a grandparent and you're a godly grandparent, your role in your grandchildren and children's lives is immense. You may not see the fruit today, but it's there. Look, it's interesting that in David's case, his grandchildren, in essence, begin to abandon the Lord. And so for those of us who are grandparents whose grandchildren are not following the Lord, well, David provides a comforting example, a comforting thing that way. But be that as it may, it doesn't take away from the impact. How many children are growing up in our society and there's really no grandparents, or there's no model, there's no nothing? There's a loss there. That's why even if you're saying, well, I don't have godly grandparents, I would say, well, in the church you do. Seek them out, build a relationship. The nuclear family is not enough. It's not enough just to have parents. You need a whole community of people of God, including grandparents, to raise children. Proverbs chapter 4 clearly speaks to that. And I do feel for those of us whose grandparents are overseas. It's a beautiful thing to visit when it can happen. Important. The generations are all raising the youngest. Now, that's happening in this chapter. Let's move on to the actual wisdom that's dispensed in our second point, to sell all to gain wisdom. So verse 5, here's the actual advice. Son, get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom. She will protect you. Love her. She will watch over you. And the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Get it. It's such a brilliant piece of advice. It's so meta, right? If people learn how to gain wisdom, it's sort of like the proverb, right? You can give a man a fish and you feed him, but if you teach a man to fish, he'll feed himself, right? This is similar. You can give wisdom to people, but if they don't learn how to learn wisdom on their own, you're just going to have to keep giving it, and it doesn't go anywhere. But if they learn how to gain wisdom in themselves, then their whole life will begin to change. Just be someone who knows how to get wisdom. Then everything else comes together. You know what Solomon says? She will protect you. How many problems and dangers in life can be avoided if only you learn how to think? Learn how to understand reality so that you become skilled in living your life. Now, there's a little bit more here. Look what it says here. Do not forsake wisdom, she will protect you. And then, love her, and she will watch over you. So it's not enough to want wisdom, you have to love wisdom. That's a little harder. You have to love growing in understanding. Love listening to other people. Love becoming skillful at living your life in a way that's wise. So it's becoming obvious then that gaining wisdom can't be a 2 out of 10 in your life in importance. It can't be the 15th priority. It can't be a 4 out of 10. Gaining wisdom has to be like a 9 out of 10. It has to be like in the top 3 priorities you have. Up there with serving God. If it isn't, then it just will kind of go by the wayside and you're not going to get it. Now again, I want to return to education for a minute. Again, as I've said, on Tuesday, school starts. A lot of students in this congregation, right? A lot of us are going to go to school. Some of us little, some of us older. Are you going to go to school on Monday or Tuesday just to get a career, and just because your parents say you have to? Or are you going to go to school to gain wisdom? How does one go to school and gain wisdom now? Well, it stands to reason that it's not enough to cram information to memorize for the next test. To gain wisdom in my schooling means to actually listen to my teachers, listen to why they teach, listen to why they live their life, listen to their teaching on how to serve God, or how not to if you're in university and your teacher hates God. Still a lot to learn there. Listen to your fellow students. Who are they? How do they think about God? How do they live their lives? What reasons do they have for what they do? Take the time to learn the people around you. Learn how to bless them. Learn how they like to love and how to be loved. How to be friends with them. How not to be friends with them. Which people should probably be kept away from. Which ones are worth drawing closer to. Learn the wisdom of letting insults roll off of you. How to forgive slights. Learn wisdom in your education. Don't get an education but fail to learn. Some of us here are teachers. What is the job of a teacher? It's the job of a teacher to fill our kids' heads with 2 plus 2 and 4 plus 4 and how to do long division. Yes, that is the job of the teacher. Is that all the job of a teacher is? So does a teacher teach the kids the information, punch the clock, that's it? Or is part of the teacher's craft to impart wisdom to the students? Not just the information they have to learn, but how to learn it, how to remember it, how to become, in the ancient world, education was not about information, it was about building character. I don't think anything's really changed on that front. It should be the same now. It's my job as a teacher. I have a position where I have an opportunity to pass on godly wisdom, to mentor children so that they can grow in the wisdom of God. So important. How many teachers, think of it. How many of us, we all had teachers, right? How many of us, we've forgotten many of the teachers we've had, but we do remember 1 or 2 or 3, right? Which ones? Which ones do you remember? You remember the ones that invested in you, that loved you, that were godly, that were there for more than just information. Not that information is unimportant, it matters. Now, that's one layer. I want to work on another layer of what this means. You see, in verse 7, Grandpa David says that the chief thing in wisdom is to get wisdom. You're not a wise person if you don't understand that getting wisdom is the number one thing. Okay. But there's more. Now, you might recognize the language that you in verse 7 of the beginning of wisdom. Now, we've heard that before. Where have we heard this? Well, actually, in Proverbs chapter 1, it says the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. But now it seems that there's a contradiction in the Bible. The beginning of wisdom is to fear the Lord, but now there's a new statement that's the same. The beginning of wisdom is to get wisdom. So which is it? Is fear of the Lord the beginning of wisdom, or is getting wisdom the beginning of wisdom? I'm going to suggest to you that both are true at the same time. And in fact, they're tied together. You can't fear the Lord and think you don't need wisdom. You can't get wisdom, true wisdom, and not end up fearing the Lord. This is where Proverbs is beginning to associate wisdom so closely with fearing God and knowing him that they are almost inseparable. And so when Proverbs is saying, get wisdom, and it's talking about wisdom, it's talking about godliness. So, you can't be a serious Christian and not grow in wisdom or want to grow in wisdom. Being a Christian is not about just showing up to church, eating your Lord's Supper bread, going home, and that's it. I'm going to fear the Lord by growing in wisdom and learning from God, who's the ultimate wisdom, and other people. And part of what Grandpa David is saying is he's saying, if you care about wisdom, the first thing you're going to do is learn to fear the Lord. And you're going to forsake everything else. You see your possessions, he said, verse 7, though it cost all you have, get understanding. So all your possessions that you have, you see them, oh, they look good, right? Get rid of all of them, if that's what it takes to gain the fear of the Lord and the wisdom of the Lord. All costs. Nothing may stand in the way. It kind of reminds me of, a lot of students who go to university. You borrow a lot of money in order to go to college. Now, this is a good thing, really. But the same metaphor should exist with gaining the Lord and gaining the Lord's wisdom. I'm willing to go into debt $100,000 or $200,000 to get a university degree, an engineering degree, so that I can get a good career. Well, how much more then should I go into debt, in a sense? Not that that's a good idea, it's not. But how much more should I give up to gain godliness, to find a good church, to grow in faith, to have my faith become robust, to become wise in my faith? Interesting. What we go in debt for, what we give up our possessions for, shows us what we really want in life, what our hearts really are doing. Wisdom and the wisdom of fearing the Lord is worth every penny you've got. And that's the wisdom of Solomon, the wisdom of David for his children and for you. Look at the reward. And listen, David is not just telling us to do this because it's the right thing to do. He's telling us to do it because there's a reward. Look at verse 8. Cherish her, wisdom, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, she will honor you. She will give you a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. If you choose wisdom, you pursue wisdom, your life is going to be blessed. It's going to be charmed. Good things are going to happen to you. And listen, you hear that word crown? Man, that word comes up a lot in the Bible. What does it mean? The crown of life. The crown that's put on our head is sort of a reward for our life well lived. In the Bible, there's 5 crowns. James chapter 1, verse 12. There's the crown of life for those who persevere under trial. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 25. The imperishable crown for those who run the race of faith well. 2 Timothy 4, verse 8, there's the crown of righteousness awarded to those Christians who reach the final judgment. 1 Peter 5, verse 4, the crown of glory that we inherit in eternity, especially to faithful elders who labor in the church. 1 Thessalonians 2, verse 19, there is a crown of rejoicing given to those who minister in Christ's church and bring a gospel to the lost. So this is 5 crowns. We receive a crown from God. God puts a crown on us and rewards us and gives us honor and glory if we persevere in faith to the end, is basically the message. And he's saying, the Proverbs, David is saying, listen, if you pursue the fear of the Lord, wisdom, godly wisdom, and you pursue that and you want it and you acquire it and you try to buy it, this is the word for buy, which is the word get, then a crown is waiting for you on the other side of heaven. And how is it that we gain the fear of God? How is it that we get wisdom? Well, brothers and sisters, it's very simple. Jesus Christ is the wisdom of God. And if you want wisdom, you want to buy it, you want to acquire it, you go to Jesus and you bow before him. You believe in him. And then you get the wisdom of God. He gives himself to you, and now you have the wisdom of God, and the wisdom of God through the Holy Spirit enters your life. It's interesting that the word for get in Hebrew here is actually the word for buy. That's why it says, give up your possessions, sell your possessions to get it. It reminds us of Isaiah 55, come all you who are thirsty, come to the waters. You who have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy my wine and milk without money and without cost. So how do I get wisdom? Be ready to sell everything you have to gain Jesus. Don't look back at Sodom and Gomorrah. Don't long for what you've left. Run to Jesus, acquire him, and he will be yours. Amen.